You know what I hate more than liberalism? People who cannot define fascism at all. But you know what? Whatever. I am LatinoZoomer and welcome back to another video here on the YouTube channel, where today we are doing a reaction video to this video called Fascism Explained. I already watched this a couple times months ago, maybe a year ago or two. And obviously back then, I didn't know what fascism was because I was like a neocon like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, 4 years ago when this video came out. I was basically a neoconservative, a normie-con, or whatever you like to call them. Neoliberal, paleo-libertarian, libertarianism, I don't even fucking know. Conservative libertarian, conservatarian. How do you even know what I was back then? But now I'm a far-right extremist that is making content for you guys on YouTube. So yeah, I'm making content on you guys for YouTube on far-right ideas. So of course I should be able to define the word fascism, which I will give my definition of fascism throughout the video once this dude talks. But anyways, I would say I am somewhat familiar with the idea of fascism. I'm gonna be honest, I've only read Oswald Mosley when it comes to fascism. I never read Giovanni Gentili. I never read his works or anything. So I really only understand what like British fascism is. I kind of understand Falangism and obviously Franco. I mean, they're separate. The Falange was kind of betrayed by Franco. And then we have National Socialism, which I'm finally grasping what it is. And then Italian fascism, which honestly, I don't know much about Italian fascism. I mean, I know a decent amount, but not as much as the other ideologies. The other ideologies of the third position, which is something I would define here. But anyways, let's just continue the video.
Oh, I'm Mr.Beat. In 2010, when I was a young lad, I began teaching world history at Blue Valley High School. Fun fact, that was the same high school that Michael Stevens from Vsauce went to. Anyway, when I first started teaching about fascism to these poor kids, I had a hard time explaining it. When I looked online for definitions, it was hard to find a definition that was historically accurate. And when I did find one, it was just ridiculously complex. And since then, I've noticed that there are a lot
Yeah, fascism is a complex ideology because it's an alternative to liberalism, the liberal system. And when I mean liberal, I mean liberalism, conservatism, all these modern ideologies that uphold the liberal system versus communism, Marxism, any form of that traditional leftism. So it's an alternative to both systems. So it's a third position system. So obviously it's going to be complex because it inherits things from both the left and the right to create a new ideological identity that's completely separate from everything else.
people who are confidently talking about fascism, but I don't think they actually know what it means.
The true fascists who are operating today in this country are of a different variety than the old fascists of Mussolini's day. They're the people who want to shut down debate on college campuses like Berkeley, what they're doing to Coulter, what they've done to Milo, others.
Because fascism.
Fox News, man. The left are the real fascists, man. The left are the real fascists. No one cares. If the left was the real fascists, I would be joining them. Like fun to say, I would be raising the banner of Mussolini and Francisco Franco and Oswald Mosley and notable other people. Quite frankly, I would be doing that right now. Or the Falange, Spanish fascism. Oh, what is this?
Regardless of nation or time or leader, is a reaction against the left. It's a frustration with liberalism. It's a rejection of socialism and communism and Marxism and feminism and globalism and perceived weakness. It's a reactionary movement.
Okay, that is partially true, but when we mean by liberalism, we're against the entire liberal system, so it's against conservatism as well, and of leftism. So yeah, it is a reactionary ideology.
That's a bit outside the realm of,
but it's a bit modern. It's like a modernist take on the, I guess, the reactionaries of the traditionalists in like the 1700s or the 1800s. Fascism is a modern ideology that's against this whole traditional LARP and just wanted to provide an alternative to liberalism and leftism, pretty much.
That forms an uneasy alliance with conservatives and centrist elites.
Fascism is a form.
No, it doesn't. It wants to destroy conservatives and centrist elites. It doesn't make an alliance with them. It forces them to comply with them, or if not, they're dead.
A of socialism, indeed, its most workable form. While the
It's not, well, yes, in a way, like National Socialism and these ideologies, National Socialism and these like fascist ideologies are, when they say they're socialist, they don't mean Marxist socialist. They mean like Prussian socialism, like communitarianism, rather than the Marxist view of the world, which is, they're different. If you look up the definition, look up Prussian socialism on Google. Yeah. So here, it's a book by Oswald Spengler, which I still haven't read. Well, it's basically Russian right-wing socialism. It's basically communitarianism. It denounced Marxism. You can obviously tell that it's different. I don't know much about it, to be honest, but I would say includes creativity, discipline, concern for the greater good, productivity, and self-sacrifice. Basically, you're just sacrificing yourself. You're productive for the collective good of the nation, basically. And obviously, they're the revolutionary right that distance themselves from traditional conservatism. So they're not like right-wing conservatives. They oppose the liberal system. Of course, they use socialism because that's a term. It's a popular term, obviously, but it's not like Marxist socialism. All right, it's something else. It's against the liberal order of liberal capitalism and Marxist socialist.
socialism of Marx mobilizes people on the basis of class. Fascism mobilizes people by appealing to their national identity as well as their class. Fascists are socialists with a national...
Fascists don't appeal to class. They hate class conflict. Like, that's a big part of fascism or third position ideologies. They hate class conflict. Now, of course, they categorize people by nations because that's how ethnicities and nationhood work. An ethnic group is part of a nation. A nation has a dominant ethnic group that defines the nation, and the point of the state is to protect that ethnic group's culture and way of life. And I guess their liberal rights or whatever. Liberal rights are just cringe, by the way. But yeah, obviously they uphold the nation. That's the whole point of having a nation, to protect the ethnic group, the cultural group, the religious group, and whatever groups they are.
national identity.
To begin, let's take a look at
ContraPoints does not know anything about fascism.
is. Contemporary fascists share three core beliefs. 1. People of European heritage are or ought to constitute a biological, cultural, and political unity known as the white race.
That's just racial politics. You don't need to necessarily believe in racial politics to be a third positionist fascist. And you don't need to be white to be a fascist either. Well, you don't need to be white to be a third positionist, but like a fascist, fascism is specifically an Italian ideology of the third position. That's how I like to categorize it.
Sometimes dog-whistled as Western culture. 2. Jews are masterminding the destruction of the white race through multiculturalism and non-white immigration.
That's just the Jewish question. You don't need to be white to believe in the Jewish question at all. Black people believe in the Jewish question. Fucking Malcolm X didn't trust the Jews. So, like, what is this?
Plot that fascists call white genocide or ethnic replacement. 3. The only way to save the white race...
Blah, 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 ethno-state, blah, 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 blah. You're just defining white nationalism or whatever, white identitarianism. That's not fascism.
Word so often misused or mischaracterized. So let's look at what fascism actually means. He beat Mr. Beat. Anyway, he released the video back in October 2017. Tristan does a great job, as he always does, but he mostly dives into the early history of fascist Italy and Nazi Germany, and frankly, he was still a bit too vague with his definition of fascism. In the comments of his video, I attempted to simplify the definition of fascism just like I used to simplify it for my students in my world history classes. Fascism is essentially conform or else. Well...
I mean, that's simple. That's too simple. I mean, it's more like conform to the nation, to uphold the nation. Basically, conform to the nation state to upheld the nation state, I would say. Would be a simple definition that's somewhat decent.
Well, it got a lot of likes, so that's cool. But then the well actually crowd hopped on, and one of the responses from Eli A was, that's just authoritarianism. Not all authoritarians are fascists, but all fascists are authoritarians. And
that is true.
Eli kind of has a point. Maybe I simplified too much. Violence usually is associated with fascism, but not always. So let me revise. Fascism is the idea that the group is more important than the individual.
More like fascism should be defined as the nation state is more important than the individual. Because that could be defined as outside socialism or left-wing authoritarianism. It's basically, that definition of fascism is just collectivism. I mean, yeah, fascism is pretty much somewhat of a collectivist ideology. But it's a third position ideology that rejects liberalism and leftism and provides an authoritarian system that opposes both systems, that destroys both systems. And what it is that you must have laws to uphold the nation. The myth of the nation comes first above all else. And that the state and the nation are inherently tied to each other.
Diversity is a threat to the group. Individualism is a threat to the group. Immigration is a threat to the group. Any new ideas could potentially be a threat to the group. Basically, anything that undermines the country, nation, or even ethnic group is a threat to the group. The people in a fascist society are expected to have limited choices and strict guidance. In other words, conform to the group.
Mostly authority opposes liberty versus it opposes liberal liberty. Obviously, it opposes egalitarianism. Clearly, it basically opposes the ideas of the ideas and values of the Enlightenment, but in a more modern take versus like the traditional conservatives of the past.
Some argue fascism had its roots in the Jacobin movement, with leaders of the French Revolution like Maximilien Robespierre. Others argue it had its roots as a backlash against the Enlightenment. During the
you see, okay, this is correct.
Enlightenment, when more and more people were raving about individualism, laissez-faire economics, liberty, and equality.
And yeah, fascism are usually against like free market capitalism, like laissez-faire capitalism. I mean, the National Socialists were like capitalistic, but obviously they weren't like laissez-faire free market, and obviously they had their tariffs to protect their industry, to protect the nation, basically. And yeah, it wants to restore the nation to a past, and Nazi Germany wanted to have their own. I mean, Nazi Germany isn't fascist, it's National Socialism, but National Socialism is a third position ideology. But anyways, yeah, they wanted to reunite the German people and expand and conquer, I guess, Europe, because they're like Aryan supremacists.
Dudes like the British philosopher Thomas Carlyle were like, hold up, hierarchy is good, democracy is bad. Some are leaders, but most are followers.
So true.
Absolute rulers were good forces.
Depends. But I think when it comes to me, I wouldn't say absolute rulers, but I would say some kind of constitution. But usually we shouldn't have the, I almost spilled my water, holy shit, on my keyboard. We shouldn't have like a liberal system like our liberal democracy. That we can't blame anyone for our problems, because who the fuck is causing all the problems in the world? It's obviously a group of elites, but we don't know who these elites are. At least back then, when you had absolute monarchies and aristocracies, you knew who was fucking you up. You knew who the people were who were fucking up the country. Now you don't anymore. Who the fuck are you gonna blame? What are you gonna blame him? You can't really blame the president. He doesn't do shit. He's just a puppet. He's just a puppet for a group of people.
Society. These ideas gained popularity during the late 1800s and early 1900s. To add to the backlash,
yeah, Giovanni Gentili.
Social Darwinism, the idea that the evolutionary concept of natural selection also applied to human societies.
It does. It actually does. But okay, this is gonna be a controversial take. But if you're like defining like your political ideology by pure rationalism, just purely rationalism, you had to come to the social Darwinism. Unironically, it's like the whole point. Let's take religion. Let's take Christianity out of this for a second. Just for a second. Obviously, this is just to make a point. I'm a Christian. But if the whole point of animals to exist is to like reproduce and provide the best genes for their offspring, you will come to the conclusion that humans will also want to fucking do that. So we have social Darwinism, and obviously you want your genetics to be spread to your generation if they're good genetics, and you don't want a fucking generation of dysgenic people. You don't want like people who look like shit who can't reproduce. So that's where you come to the social Darwinism conclusion. Of course, we believe in Christian morality here on the YouTube channel, so we're not purely social Darwinists, but I would say that race and ethnicity is real. There's genetic differences between different groups of people, and we should strive to make a healthy genetic population. We don't need dysgenic people. And people are like, oh my god, you believe in eugenics? I mean, in a way, kind of. I mean, people even argue that. It was like, oh, you can't be against incest, because if you say you're against incest for genetic defects, so you're eugenics. I'm like, okay, I'm a eugenics then. But obviously, I don't really support, like, the old school eugenics. I mean, they did a lot of unethical stuff. But social Darwinism, I wouldn't say it's base, but it's right about a decent amount of things. But you need some kind of moral system to prevent people from doing unethical stuff when it comes to, like, saying evolution in humans or genetic disorders in humans or whatever. You can't, like, oh yeah, your baby is a fucking disabled, kill it. You can't do that. Obviously, that's fucked up. But you should be able to do some genetic practices.
Became a big thing. This fit right in with what would eventually be called fascism. The term fascism wasn't used until 1915 by supporters of a guy you probably have heard of named Benito Mussolini. Mussolini started a group called the Fasci of Revolutionary Action and a newspaper called The People of Italy after he broke away from the Italian Socialist Party. As you may recall, this
is how you explain socialism to a conservative. Wait, no, I said that wrong. That's how you explain fascism to conservatives, because they're going to be like, oh, Benito Mussolini used to be a socialist, so therefore, fascism is leftism. Yeah, you're a fucking dumbass, first of all. Fascism isn't leftism. It's an alternative to leftism and mainstream conservatism and liberalism. It's an alternative. That's why Mussolini left the Socialist Party, because he disagreed with it ideologically, because he was proud of being Italian. He was proud of being he was an Italian nationalist that was proud of being an Italian. And socialists, can that dog stop barking? And socialists are internationalists. So he cannot be a fucking socialist if he's proud of being an Italian. He has to be something else. And obviously, conservatism is not doing much to conserve the nation. Obviously, conservatism is a failure, and liberalism is just progressing the nation to something disastrous. Free market capitalism is destroying culture, because it prioritizes profit over everything else. So, of course, it's going to destroy the old cultural institutions. So, obviously, Mussolini would become a fascist or something entirely different than what the system was proposing at the time, because that's like the most rational decision you can do if you oppose both liberalism and socialist, Marxist, or whatever you want to call it.
Was smack dab in the middle of World War I, which Mussolini had fought in but had returned home after getting injured. With his newspaper and the Fasci
His hat was cool, by the way.
Action, Mussolini started a movement, and it grew in popularity, calling for things like continuing to fight in World War I, increasing militarism in general, and most importantly, nationalism. His followers proudly call themselves fascists, with a capital F. The Italian word fascio, meaning group, which comes from the Latin word fasces, which literally meant a bundle of sticks. One stick will bend and break. All the sticks together will stand strong. And yes, this became the symbol of the fascist party. Early fascists seemed kind of like socialists, calling for things like an 8-hour workday, a minimum wage, and a progressive tax that targeted the rich. However,
yeah, because they opposed the liberal system. They opposed free market capitalism. Like I said, it's not Marxist socialism, it's not capitalism, it's a third position. It's something beyond the capitalist socialist spectrum.
many of them seem to be fans of authoritarianism. Supporters who nicknamed themselves the Black Shirts turned to intimidation and violence to shut down critics of their movement. Ultimately, the fascists were able to take over Italy after the March on Rome in 1922, and
I can't wait for the 100th anniversary of this event. Holy shit, it's gonna happen this year, and it's gonna be fucking beautiful. The March on Rome was pretty good. It was pretty impressive. Of course, I'm not a fascist, but it was a pretty interesting moment in Italian history.
Mussolini forcibly became prime minister and eventually dictator. For more on that, I have videos in the description that go into more detail, like Tristan's video. Go check it out. Again, my main purpose of this video is to simplify what fascism is. To recap, fascism is the idea that
Fascism is an alternative to liberalism and leftism that is something beyond this political spectrum. It's third position in the ideology that rejects liberal ideas and leftist ideas, that promotes like hierarchy, tradition, anti-egalitarianism, authoritarianism, but it's also not at, it also isn't as traditional as traditional conservatism, traditionalism, because it is something that's made for the modern world, or when we mean modern, we mean the 1900s, obviously. I think I repeated a lot of words, but I will get a definition down by the end of the video.
Group is more important than the individual. Authoritarianism and totalitarianism are both useful tools of fascism, but they are not necessary for it to happen, I suppose. But the other reason for me making this video is my frustration with people just using whatever definition of fascism best promotes their cause or fits their political agenda. Even the Oxford English Dictionary gets it wrong.
An authoritarian and nationalistic right-wing system of government and social organization.
Fascism tends to be authoritarian, but it doesn't mean it has to be. It tends to be nationalistic, but it doesn't mean it has to be.
I mean, I feel like it has to be nationalistic. Authoritarian? I mean, yeah, it should be somewhat, it has to have value and authority.
Tends to be historically right-wing, but it doesn't mean it has to be. I mean, geez, Oxford English Dictionary, if you are getting it wrong, how is anyone else expected to get it right? The sad thing is that even though people use the...
I mean, it's more right-wing than left-wing, if I'm being honest, but it is something that is beyond the left and right dichotomy.
The word fascism to describe people they disagree with or they hate, they often are subconsciously cool with some aspects of it. Could this be you? Are you still confused about what fascism actually is? Well, here are some puppets to help illustrate ways that society can...
Oh no, not the puppets again. I'm not sure which order I'm going to upload these videos, but I don't like his puppets.
...become fascist.
Oh wow, our government sucks. What is happening to our country?
Sorry, what did you say?
I didn't say anything.
You said our government sucks, and our country isn't going in the right direction.
I didn't mean it.
You are an enemy of the country. Take him away.
There is a group of people that is making this country lose its way.
The Jews, man. Nah.
Taking our jobs and making us less by being here. We have to get them out.
I don't think you need a scapegoat to be fascist. It's just a tool for people to get power. Unless you're right about the group of people that are in power. Which, to be fair, it is somewhat accurate of who the people who are in charge. Which group of people who are running this country now, promoting all this degeneracy in our nation. We all know the people, but I'm not going to say it on YouTube. But if you've been on my Telegram, on my Instagram stories, specifically my Telegram, you would know.
By whatever means necessary.
You!
Jim Jet from the Disassociated Press, why do you keep locking up people with blue hair?
We need to protect the state. We cannot keep a country going without breaking a few eggs. Speaking about breaking eggs, Jim Jet, that's the last question you're ever going to ask.
Everything is fine. People are not being taken away to detention centers, separated from their loved ones.
But yeah, propaganda. We love our propaganda. No, this is what I have. I said this in another video, but propaganda is used by every system in the world. All right, you need propaganda to uphold your system through education. Liberal democracy is upheld because you are taught in schools that democracy and egalitarianism is good. You're taught equality is good as a child. You're taught as, oh, having a vote is good. Everyone having a vote is good. You are taught that since you're like 5 years old or 6 when you enter elementary school. And you see these talking points repeated throughout the media. And all it is to uphold the system. Just because, oh yeah, we are a free democracy does not mean we aren't being presented propaganda. And that's what I have a problem with people who are like neo-lib centrists. You guys are fucking retarded, and you believe that we live in this perfect world where you cannot have, that there's no propaganda because we live in a free democracy. Alright? There's, at least in fascist Germany, you know there's fascist Germany, Nazi Germany, you at least know there was propaganda because they literally had a minister. They literally had Joseph Goebbels being the propaganda minister, alright? We don't know. Most people don't know we're being like lied to by our education system, our media, because most people are dumb enough to believe in the ideas that we are free and we are meant to be equal. All right, like, and that's what I have a problem with. All these stupid fucking ideologies. Yes, communism has propaganda, fascism has propaganda, but liberals can't have propaganda because we're free. We have the freedom of press and whatever. No, we don't. All right, it's all big lie. And look, I'm not against propaganda. I'm just against people denying that we have propaganda in our system. In my belief system, yes, I want propaganda to be enforced. I'm not fascist. I'm something else. All right. I am like I'm more focused on like, I like the nation state, the nationhood. I'm more traditionalist when it comes to values. I support hierarchy. I'm not really in favor of egalitarianism. I support liberty to an extent, but I'm just against the entire system, quite frankly. So yeah. What else? And obviously I support religion. But religious values in society, which honestly fascists weren't really that religious, except for the Falange and like Spanish fascist Spain. I would say they're really the only religious fascists that actually had like some kind of influence and power. Like sure, there's other ideologies that are religious fascists, but they're not that popular. They were never that popular. But anyways, yeah. What I believe in is that the United States should not be a multicultural society. We should have ethno-cultural governments to uphold racial autonomy, and that to prevent racial and ethnic conflict in the United States, we should have regional governments based on ethnicity and culture. That's what I believe in, honestly. And religion to an extent. Yeah, we need religion in our society, so religion. But I'm not like a theocracy. I don't support theocracy, but I do support upholding religious values in our society. But anyways, that's what I believe in. I mean, if you want to label me as a fascist, go ahead. I mean, I wouldn't mind the label as third positionist, but I'm not a fascist because I'm not Italian. I'm not a Nazi because I'm not a German. All right, it's that simple.
But isn't he just a human?
Human? He's our savior. We owe
I have my own ideologies. I'm a genius, by the way.
everything to him. I'd give my left arm to him if I hadn't already given my right arm at the factory.
Okay.
All terrific actors, very funny too. I put a link to a video in the description to one of their videos. Go check it out.
Alright, he finished this video. Okay. Here's how I define like fascism and third positionism. The third position can be defined as ideologies that reject the traditional left versus right dichotomy that provides an alternative to liberal capitalism and Marxist socialists, with a belief system that upholds the nation state through authoritarianism, hierarchy, nationalism, anti-egalitarian, etc. Basically ideas that reject the Enlightenment. It is also an alternative to traditionalism, traditional conservatism, which it views as outdated to fight the problems of the 20th century. Therefore, third positionism, specifically fascism, is a form of modernism. Fascism is the Italian third position ideology, while National Socialism is the German third position ideology, while Falangism is a Spanish third position ideology. So each nation has a different third position ideology. So fascism is specifically Italian. We gotta remember that. Fascism is specifically Italian. So yeah, Spanish fascism is Falangism, which is different from fascism. You kind of have to understand that. But the third position is a good label to like describe fascism. I mean, it's an actual term. If you look it up, look up third position, and there we go. Yep, it's a neo-fascist ideology. Blah 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 blah. Third position of capitalism, Western bloc of communism. Yeah, blah 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 blah. You already know. I mean, it's described as neo-fascist, but in reality, it's like it's fascism itself. It's beyond the left and the right. So if this is my definition, it should be the official definition on Wikipedia. I'm like correct about everything. That is my definition of fascism. Your definition might be different because fascism is kind of a weird ideology, or third positionism is a kind of a weird system of ideologies, but overall, I would say most people get the definition of these terms wrong, and it's understandable why, but do not use it to promote your own ideologies. And the question is, am I a fascist? Am I a third positionist? I'm not a fascist, like I said earlier, but in a sense, I am a third positionist. I reject the left and right dichotomy 100% all the way. I'm not a big fan of liberal capitalism or Marxist socialist. I should also add an anti-democracy, etc. Anti-liberal democracy, I should put. There we go. I think this is a complete definition with a couple of examples of third position ideologies. But anyways, I think that is it for today's video. This video wasn't that bad. I mean, he got the definition wrong, but most people get the definition wrong. So it's alright, but I don't expect most people to get the definition right because I'm like a genius compared to everyone else. But anyways, that is it for today's video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like down below, share the video, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. Alright dudes, it's LatinoZoomer here, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out, guys.